You only need to know me. I will be the one.
世界最高の戦争始めようぜ。
お前の相手は俺だ。
Depending on the series you're reading, certain characters, especially shonen protagonists, are written as the strongest or approaching some semblance of being the strongest, or maybe it's better to say are on par with the strongest of characters in their particular universe. Goku, Naruto, and Ichigo stand out from a set of series thought to be in competition to hold the title for the king of shonen at one point in the past. Although I'm sure we can debate this subjectively, numbers don't lie, and for a time, One Piece was unrivaled in that regard. That is, One Piece was the king. And like his peers, Luffy will undoubtedly be one of, if not the most powerful character in One Piece by the end of the story. Why? Well, aside from being the main character, having, as some of you have stressed to me, unrivaled plot armor personified by a devil fruit in which Luffy bounces back from everything like rubber, the answer is quite relatable and perhaps controversial in that sense. Luffy never gives up. That is what makes him and yes other shonen characters so strong, and there is inspiration that can be drawn from an indomitable will. There's even an argument to be made that Conquerors Haki, something tied to willpower, is the most powerful ability in One Piece, and perhaps Oda has managed to master the art of writing strong-willed characters as well as the cliché power of friendship, so that it is not just relatable but believable. We all, in our own lives for that matter, want to do more than simply make a passive attempt at something, or as Yoda says, do or do not, and there is no try. Give it your all, don't settle for anything less. If you have a goal, be willing to fail. If you have a dream, be willing to die. Whether it's an athlete, scientist, or inventor, or even a revolutionary political figure. Among the greatest of their ranks, you can find those who you'd be right to question whether or not they had a death wish. For they truly put their heart into the game, into the act, into the pursuit of that next level of achievement or discovery. For them, there was no ceiling, which takes us to some dialogue extending from chapter 1000 to 1001. You know, you got a feel for them, Kaido and Big Mom. They really didn't expect Luffy to rise to their level so fast. As readers, I think we did, but it was a shock for many of us to watch as Luffy so effortlessly pummeled Kaido's face into the ground. A callback to the moment he one-shotted a pacifista on Sabaody, therefore a subtle suggestion on Oda's part that Luffy's progression since his first clash with Kaido is akin to the 2 years of training under Rayleigh on Rizukaina Island. That is, Luffy has come just as far, if not farther, in far less time. Kaido, just prior to being hit, had asked Luffy what kind of king he said he would be. A callback to a prior chapter, their first encounter, where Luffy told Kaido he would become the king of the pirates, only to be humiliated. Now, in such a short span of time, Luffy stands before 2 emperors and equal on this stage of kings and declares that he will surpass them. In chapter 1001, Big Mom asks if Luffy has any idea what it means to be the king of the pirates, and of course, this alludes to the various ambitions of everyone seeking the title of Pirate King. The elusive question of what would happen if the wrong person discovered Joy Boys and the former Pirate King's treasure, and the allegedly great power to transform the world, something the world government fears. But Big Mom's questioning also hints at her scorn for the prospect of Luffy doing what she in her old age has been unable to achieve all her life. Even as she snares down her nose at him, we see Kaido recover from his injury amazed Luffy had grown so quickly after being destroyed by Kaido and Curry. How there are, or perhaps were, only a few people capable of fighting Kaido in the past or harming him. This is largely in relation to the notion of advanced Ryo, or a level of Ryo if combined with swordsmanship that exceeds basic usage, that matches Kozuki Oden. But there is another suggestion by Oda here, and it comes with Kaido's next question. How far? How high does Luffy's ceiling go? As if in order, Oda seems to indicate that Luffy will surpass Kozuki Oden by the end of Wano, and at some point others who had given Kaido some trouble in the past. Shanks, Whitebeard, Roger, and even Kaido's former captain Zebek D. Rocks. Something these figures might have in common is Conquerors Haki, a will or spirit that sets them apart from the rest. What I'm about to go over is an idea I've discussed in I think 2 or 3 different videos, but perhaps this one will be more concise. Silver's Rayleigh was the first to pass on some lessons about Conquerors or Halshoku Haki. He told Luffy about its uniqueness, that while Haki is a mysterious power that can be found in every living being in the world, Most people do not notice it or fail to awaken it. This rare ability can only be awakened by a select group of chosen ones, 1 in a million. After the time skip, the mystery of Conquerors is unraveled further. During his clash with Don Chinjiao, the other combatants fell one by one. The announcer describes how all these famed warriors were overcome by the sheer spectacle of these two clashing monsters and collapsed where they stood, as Luffy and Don Chinjiao were the last left standing. Chinjiao recognizes Luffy's conquering spirit and says, "Do you dream of becoming a king, boy?" Luffy responds that he will not merely be a king, but rather he will be the Pirate King. With that, Chinjiao grew enraged at Luffy's ambition, his defiance, and told him, "Worthless prattle. In the oceans that stretch before you, you will run into any number of men with kingly potential. Only one can emerge victorious by conquering heights greater than the other kings." In essence, the greatest conqueror, the strongest character in One Piece, he or she with the greatest will, that is the Pirate King. Some, such as myself and Mr. Morge, perceive Wano as an arc defined by a quest to become the greatest king, Luffy's overall challenge in his fight against the 4 emperors of the sea, Kaido's familiar line of questioning about what kind of king Luffy desires to be, his desire to break Luffy's will, to crush a king's spirits, the will of a conqueror, has led me to question the true power of Conqueror's haki and what it might mean for the future with its allusions to an indomitable will, the ability to overcome all odds. Kaido had instructed his subordinates to take Luffy to Udon so that they might try and break his will, with the hope of recruiting him, that Luffy would make a formidable ally, only for Luffy to then display his conquering spirit, the rarity that is Conqueror's haki. Luffy's revelation that he too possesses the color of the Supreme King, as some call it, led Kaido to remark that he did not need any more conquerors in his crew. As you know, Kaido once belonged to the Rocks Pirates alongside Big Mom, who has also demonstrated a strong will. And returning to the concept of Luffy's ceiling, wherein Kaido's words conjured the image of Whitebeard and Zebek, they too were a part of the Rocks Pirates, and there is no reason to doubt Zebek was a great, if not the greatest conqueror to have ever lived, unless he was surpassed by Roger, that is, a fight which, Garp aside, we'll save for another discussion. In essence, God Valley was a battle of gods, of kings, of conquerors, and in keeping with the consideration of Zebek's potential, Zebek's own ceiling of strength, he aspired not to be the Pirate King, but the King of the World. You have to wonder, Pirate King or King of the World, what path requires the greatest will, the greater struggle? Aside from acknowledging Luffy, Kaido had mentioned Eustace Kid having a conquering spirit as well. Kid, like Luffy, is on a quest to become the greatest king, the Pirate King. And briefly keeping with this topic, notice how in chapter 1001 he teases Law as being subservient to Luffy, a follower, not a leader. Some people really do think Law will decide to follow Luffy in the end, that he, like the other Supernova, will experience their own Sabaody moment, here in Wano, wherein, similar to Sabaody, being the pirate's summit and first and foremost a visceral example of Luffy's crushed spirit, that he wasn't ready for that stage. We now see most of the worst generation here on Onigashima, a floating island atop the world, the pinnacle of piracy in the form of Big Mom and Kaido standing in their way. Whether or not Basil Hawkins, Apu, and Law still aim to be the Pirate King after this arc is an important question. Drake is a member of SWORD, and so via that revelation, Oda has already removed one of the candidates for Roger's empty throne. I think we can safely assume Hawkins and Apu at least are out of the running. Set aside having a conquering spirit, or rather not having a conquering spirit, they are weak-willed in general, having bowed down to Kaido rather than fight him as Kid chose to do. That like Luffy, Kaido has been unable to break Kid's will. If you give up, even once, it's safe to say you are not fit. You are unworthy to wear the crown. So, for some time, I've been thinking about Luffy's ceiling of strength, what it takes to become the Pirate King, and why Luffy might be the strongest character by the end of One Piece, maybe to have ever lived, once he takes the throne for himself. And I even touched on part of the answer in a video called Luffy Revealed His True Power on Marineford. In that video I mentioned how Mihawk, with his ever clairvoyant perception of people, places, and things, took notice of Luffy's unique ability, something he described as the most dangerous ability on all these seas, the power to bring both friend and foe to his side. When we look from arc to arc, this rare gift of Luffy's is an ability that has permitted him to unite the very inhabitants of islands he's attempting to save behind him in a common cause. That these people would later be supportive of Luffy's own dream, so willing to fight alongside and if need be die for him, is significant beyond the immediacy of the moment. whether it's helping Luffy stop the birdcage on Dressrosa or consequently aiding his escape from the Marines, something even the blind Fujitora, who, similar to Mihawk, is perceptive in his own unique way, took notice of, ultimately coming to Luffy's aid as well, allowing him to depart. In Chapter 1000, we saw Luffy approach the discarded remains of his samurai and mink friends. The 9 red scabbards' scattered forms lay as broken as their collective dream to open Wano's borders and defeat Kaido and Oda instead. Luffy promises a tearful Kinemon that he will carry Wano on his back, that this was his friend's country and he wouldn't let them down, that he, as he had told the frightened warriors imprisoned in Udon, was here to defeat Kaido as well. It is this sense of determination or willpower, the conviction to never give up, the ability to also not just inspire others but be inspired by them, that allows Luffy to surpass prior limitations. The idea that Luffy might be on the cusp of losing and need to buy himself some more time in his fight against Kaido has led some to wonder if the scabbards will eventually recover enough to risk their lives once more in defiance of death, that some of them might still die, maybe. Here's hoping. Inspired by Luffy's own will to risk it all for a dream. That is in essence the overarching theme of Oda's story, that dreams are worth fighting for, even dying for. So, beyond the capacity to inspire, Luffy has demonstrated an unrivaled willpower in the story, and that really is saying something considering how there are so many other One Piece characters with strong wills of their own, as well as equally difficult dreams that they seek to achieve. In fact, granted Oda is often critiqued for convoluted power scaling discussions in which abilities and rankings are at times very unclear, it can be said willpower is a fantastic way to measure the level of a character in the series. That true believers and those most willing to lose it all to gain the world set themselves apart from all the rest. Now, what I'm about to go over is a topic I've shared in another video, but it's worth repeating here. The concept of advanced Conquerors Haki and what it might be. There can obviously be no explicit answer as of yet, but the thought of an advanced conqueror at its most basic level lends itself to the notion of an advanced will, and the thing that separates some kings from others. That in pursuit of the title of Pirate King, a conqueror like Kid and Luffy stand out, when compared to someone like Cavendish, who has now chosen to set aside his past resentment and become a subordinate of Luffy's, or Trafalgar Law, who also does not have Conqueror's Haki as far as we know, and whose fate is unknown. I do think advanced conquerors will be the ability to affect the very world around you. A will so great that the very elements are mastered, nature itself, even life and death. The spirit and one's emotions are often intertwined, and we see the Yonko from time to time influence the very world. The weather with their feelings. Big Mom's rage, Kaido's terrible mood on Onigashima, and most notable since our protagonist Luffy is fashioned in his image, Shanks. Shanks' anger on that certain island just prior to Mihawk's arrival, the very heavens transformed by individual temperament. When you think of basic and advanced, with observation you go from sensing the moment to sensing or predicting the future. With armament, you go from a hammer that crushes to a spear, or in the case of swordsmen, a blade that pierces and damages from within. It would only make sense, then, that advanced conquerors would go from the basics of affecting a single person to groups or crowds, and from there to affecting inanimate life, the very world around you. Basically, conquerors on a broader scale, but I think many have overlooked how a strong will affects the individual self. How a strong will allows one to endure adversity. How a strong will allows one to overcome any obstacle, maybe even death. But the idea of being unafraid to die for a dream and the overcoming of death, a kind of mastery over one's own life, is most pertinent to today's topic, a trend we have seen exhibited by Luffy and others on several occasions. And this quality is what separates the weak from the strong in the One Piece world. Oda once said Luffy doesn't kill because in the pirates' world, in that era, everyone fights for their dreams. It is the dream of your enemy you seek to crush, to destroy, for the loss of a dream is worse than death. And this idea can be found throughout the story and is worth revisiting in this context. The most obvious example of a character beyond Luffy that exhibits tremendous will, someone unafraid to die for a dream, is the first pirate to join Luffy's crew, Zoro. Mihawk had stabbed Zoro in the chest, and Zoro kind of just stood there, unfazed, injured, but determined to press forward. Mihawk had wondered if Zoro was trying to get himself killed. Did Zoro wish for his heart to be pierced? Was he trying to die? Zoro seems to be just as confused as Mihawk, but he doesn't really struggle to find an answer. He just replies by saying that he has a feeling. Something in his gut tells him that if he takes a step back from Mihawk's blade, if he runs from or cowers before death, if he isn't prepared to risk it all, then he, Zoro, would lose something far more valuable than his own life. He would lose his dream. To which Mihawk responds, yes, such is defeat. Zoro's words to Mihawk that he would much rather die than surrender, than to forfeit his dream, impresses upon Mihawk Zoro's remarkable conviction. Mihawk seems to relate this conviction to strength, that willpower is indeed an ability or attribute, a part of Oda's power system, and Zoro's strength or conviction is not often seen in this world. I said in my Will of D One Piece Mega Theory video that a dream can be shared, and so too the will, the determination to see it fulfilled. The Straw Hats have individual dreams, but also share in the aspirations of one another to such an extent that their dreams are collective. Just about every Straw Hat has now said with immense passion and unchallenged belief that Luffy is the man who will be the Pirate King. Some of them had held steadfast to their captain's dream under the threat of death. Nami is the most recent example. Zoro is the most noteworthy and relevant one. The willingness to die for the dreams of others, almost as if their dream was your own, seems important. Zoro's fight with Mihawk is rekindled in a transformative sense against Kuma, how Kuma, before imparting some of Luffy's pain upon him, had said this would surely kill Zoro, that Zoro would experience hell. Kuma had questioned why a man like Zoro with such ambition would be willing to throw away his life, thus forfeiting it all. Zoro tells us that his dream, his ambition, means absolutely nothing if he can't protect his captain, his captain's dream. And for that dream, to protect his captain, he would gladly die. And I really do think here, in this moment, Zoro tapped into something that will ultimately allow him to surpass Mihawk in the end. When Zoro survives Luffy's pain and claims nothing happened, in reality something did. Ironically, through this near-death experience and coming so close to breaking his promise to Kuina, Zoro kept the promise and came one step closer to becoming the world's strongest swordsman. We do see Sanji also willing to die for his captain, to sacrifice his own life, his dream, as if Zoro's words about his own personal ambition being meaningless rang true for Sanji as well, that the all blue and all that came with it was meaningless without making Luffy's dream a reality too. The way in which people are willing to die for Luffy, for his dream, really does speak to that rare gift Mihawk saw in Luffy, his presence, how he is so inspiring, the things friends and even former enemies will do for him. And when we combine this with Kuma's words after Zoro took Luffy's pain, how Luffy had found himself some good nakama, but Kuma wasn't surprised because he was, in Kuma's words, Dragon's son, speaks to the idea that just maybe Monkey D. Dragon shares in this power. That Dragon too can command the respect of others, influence their wills, and bring them to his side by virtue of his presence and character alone for revolution. We'll address this at the end of the video, so stay tuned, but Ivankov later remarks upon Luffy's great will, how it should come as no surprise if he is indeed Dragon's son. Then there is the moment as Luffy rushes to rescue Ace, in which Garp references Luffy being born with that ability too, that Luffy's father also maybe has the power of a conqueror, and all that such an ability entails. At times it feels as if Conquerors Haki and willpower are one and the same, or at the very least overlap in some ways. Both are an embodiment of a strong spirit, wherein Conquerors is nothing more than the expression of one's unique will. And like any artist, depending on talent and experience, the means of expression vary. The presence or abilities of some Conquerors is or are greater than others. This was first proven when Shanks boarded Whitebeard's ship and Marco, Jozu, and the rest acknowledged his amazing or otherwise overwhelming spirit. A spirit that impacted the physical world, damaging Whitebeard's boat. And to think Shanks was only slightly flexing his muscles. Just imagine what he's truly capable of. To think also that Luffy told Shanks as a child back in Fuchsia Village before he set out on his journey that he wanted to surpass Shanks, and reconsidering Luffy's alleged ceiling of strength another time, how Luffy, following typical shonen logic, might be the strongest character end of series, there was a moment shortly after Zoro's defeat that Mihawk asked Luffy what he aimed for. Luffy told him to be king of the pirates, a path Mihawk would characterize as being even tougher than surpassing him. That to emerge victorious in a battle that Don Chenjiao described as a competition between conquering kings was far more difficult than becoming the world's strongest swordsman. than surpassing Mihawk's blade. In either case, the willingness to die for a dream, a strong will, is what people on either path have in common, Luffy, Zoro, and others. In the same Baratie arc, shortly after Zoro and Mihawk's fight, Luffy goes up against Don Krieg. Owner Zeph tells Sanji to watch closely, that occasionally you run into idiots like Luffy, those of a rare breed, that fight to the death once they decide upon a goal, the worst sort of enemy you can face. That no matter the weapon or armor of an enemy, it is no match for the special spear that comes from your guts, and a conviction that doesn't fear death. We touched on Zoro being willing to die for Luffy when in reality Zoro gave his all to survive. His conviction wouldn't let him die until he became the world's strongest. Maybe in contrast, as some speculate, Sanji actually would have died if he had tried to take Luffy's pain, that was his true intention, and so Zoro stopped him. I say this because while making this video I stumbled upon this scene of Sanji's similar sacrificial mentality. Actually, in many ways, Whole Cake Island embodied the same concept. Sanji turned himself over to Big Mom to save his crew, a sacrificial lamb. But this panel in Baratie, Sanji was willing to give his life to stop Don Krieg. Again, the Baratie thriller bark Zoro-Sanji parallel. And Luffy says to Sanji, you won't be repaying any debt by dying. That's not what Owner Zeph saved you for. And we see a flashback of Shanks from the time he rescued Luffy from the Sea King. In that way, Shanks' loss of an arm was an instruction for Luffy to live his life well, that was how Luffy could repay the favor, that there was immense value in Luffy living. Luffy says Owner Zeph didn't save Sanji just to have him throw his life away. That's what a weakling does. You repay a debt like that by living your life with renewed purpose. It's just interesting how Luffy and Whitebeard saved Ace, and Ace, feeling as if he owed Whitebeard and Luffy a tremendous debt, sacrificed and lost his life in the process. What is Oda trying to tell us here? That Ace, in Luffy's earlier words to Sanji, was weak? Or that just maybe true strength is the willingness to put your life on the line for the lives, the dreams of others, even at the cost of your own? Then again, Ace had already achieved his dream, to be honest. He realized finally that it was good that he was born, that there were people that loved him in this world after all, and he no longer needed to prove himself. Perhaps he never did. So no, I don't think Oda was saying Ace was weak. He was implying something else. I do think that this concept of death, of one's willingness or refusal to die, is significant, important for the broader discussion of will, conviction, and Conquerors hockey. Chapter 63 is titled I'm Not Gonna Die. We see all these ideas I really touched upon represented in this chapter. Jin is on the cusp of death, and Luffy tells him, don't die, Jin. Don't you dare let yourself be killed by a guy like him. Hang in there with sheer willpower. As Luffy moves to confront Don Krieg, Sanji warns Luffy to watch out. He's gonna get himself killed, and Luffy says, I'm not gonna die. I think Katakuri told Luffy the following in Whole Cake Island. Most people don't die because they want to. Death is, for the most part, an unwanted occurrence. Kaido is a legendary pirate said to have been defeated and captured over and over again, but no explanation is given as to how he was defeated, only that during and after said captures, the Yonko and Marines couldn't kill him. He wouldn't die. Whether that is hyperbole or not, whether Advanced Rio is really that rare of an ability, whether Kaido is unique in some way or has an incredible spirit, well, I'm sure we'll find out soon. I'd also like to point out Law's words to Tashigi on Punk Hazard, that the weak don't get to choose how they die. It really makes you question if Law will decide the time and manner of his own death, and when we can look forward to something like that happening if it does. Luffy has repeatedly made known that he will be the one to decide when he dies, over and over again. Most recently while up against Queen, his will wouldn't break, and as far as he was concerned, the prison of Udon would not be his grave. How Oda uses death to reflect willpower is crucial to understanding what advanced Conquerors hockey might be, and why the strongest One Piece characters should have incredibly durable spirits. People to this day can't figure out when exactly Oden displayed a similar will. That Shuten Maru had foreshadowed Oden's Conquerors hockey ever since chapter 924, and I've said before it was in chapter 972, that during Oden's legendary and finest hour, we saw firsthand what separates some conquerors from others. Sentenced to die in a boiling pot of oil, the temperature kept rising until it reached 700 degrees. Many looked on in disbelief. The narrator describes the scene as a hell wherein even the humidity was lethal. The boiling oil burned Oden's skin, oozing away his flesh, but Oden did not die. It shouldn't come as a surprise to us that Oden achieved what he did. that he had submerged himself within a flaming pot of boiling oil and endured what few men of his caliber could, that Wano's true shogun, a king by birth and yes, example, a king in spirit, had the will to overcome death itself for a dream that not only encompassed the opening of Wano's borders, but the survival of his friends, family, and loyal retainers, the 9 red scabbards that would fulfill a centuries-old dream on his behalf. Doesn't it remind you of the first pirate to recognize Odin's potential, Edward Newgate? That during Marineford we witnessed Whitebeard engage in countless battles, endure various injuries that would have killed an ordinary man. There was even a moment when Whitebeard came back from the brink of death, his body scarred and bloody, riddled with holes, sprang to life again as if possessed by a spirit of some kind, a will that would not allow him to die just yet. It was very similar to how Luffy first used Gear Second against Blueno to push his own body to its limits. I can only look back in awe as the narrator described his final moments. Even after he died, his face half gone, his body would not yield. Cutting his enemies down, he was the very image of a monster. In this battle he suffered 267 sword wounds as well as 152 bullet wounds and 46 cannon wounds. But on his proud back, and indeed his life as a pirate, he did not suffer a single coward's injury. For a mortal man to achieve all this, the kind of will it must have required. Whitebeard isn't the only legend built this way. His rival Roger, I think, was very much the same, and so too his lover Porcus D. Rouge. Rayleigh told us how Roger had come down with an incurable disease, but it is from Odin's flashback that we truly see what Roger was going through. When Whitebeard arrived to that certain island in the New World, Roger stated he didn't have much time left. When Odin and Roger set sail together, there was a moment during which Crocus told Roger he only had 1 year left to live. To which Roger responds that was why he's in a hurry. Aside from the medications and life support that Crocus provided him, I can only think that Roger had been holding on to life, that while Oda says the disease didn't make him weaker, the real reason Roger endured as long as he did is because of a conquering spirit, that through sheer willpower Roger had, at great cost to himself, postponed or delayed his mortality until his dream, his ambition was fulfilled. That it was only after discovering the truth of this world, throwing that one final party on Laugh Tale, that the Pirate King was content with saying his final goodbyes. And upon the day of his execution, Roger relinquished his spirit. Blades that would not normally harm him pierced his flesh, and the swift tide of death rushed in to claim what had long been denied. That in this moment, Roger, in the image of Luffy, had decided the time and manner of his own death. Porcus D. Rouge, in turn, is said to have been pregnant for an unnaturally long period. She had carried Ace within her womb for 20 months after Roger's death, apparently relying on nothing more than sheer willpower. The resulting exhaustion of Ace's birth after such a long duration of time led to her death. And so, in much the same way as Roger, Rouge was able to conquer death until her task was done, her ambition to bring the Pirate King's child into the world fulfilled. So, when it comes to just how strong Luffy will be in the future, his ceiling, I think Luffy has limitless potential, because nothing seems impossible for him. He dares to dream the unimaginable, to pursue such a dream despite the laughter of others, those that might look down on his ambition. It is a dream that, despite how wild its revelation in the future, Ace and Sabo firmly believe Luffy will accomplish. It is a dream Luffy will surely die for in the end, but not until he sees it through. And because he must live to make it a reality despite the enormous challenges that lie in wait, beyond Big Mom and Kaido, beyond the remaining emperors of the sea, Luffy's determination to become the Pirate King will only serve to embolden his spirit in the future. That Luffy's journey is not so much a foolhardy game of Russian roulette, but a test of character, a mark that separates the weak from the strong, those worthy and unworthy of the throne. Finally, a moment in Impel Down takes Ivanko's words into consideration, that the hormone operation performed on Luffy, whether he lives or dies, is entirely up to his own willpower. How badly does he want to survive? How badly, in that moment, did he want to save Ace, and overall, how badly does he want to be Pirate King? Bonchan is worried Luffy won't make it, that Ivanko's treatment will kill him. But before Bonchan can intervene, Ivankov gives this underappreciated speech, and I do love speeches. Don't make light of his life. Do you understand what it takes to survive when you're fated to die? I'm not a god or a Buddha, a man of miracles. That's just a name other people decided to call me. I've never been able to save a fool who only relied on others. Countries that were mired in poverty. Countries that were broken by war and about to collapse. I just called forth their own will to live. Miracles only come to those who never give up. Don't underestimate the power of miracles. I believe this scene reflects Luffy's own hour of legend. Rather, Ivankov tells us he had predicted it would take 48 hours for Luffy to heal or he would die, and Luffy managed somehow to heal in just 20 hours, a little under a day's time. Ivankov notes Luffy has an incredible will to live. There's a suggestion thereafter that this isn't the work of miracles. This isn't destiny or some sort of predetermination. No, this was free will. But something else as well. That beyond Luffy's endurance, beyond Ivankov's devil fruit ability, Bonchan had suffered alongside Luffy for hours and hours. Despite his own wounds, he never stopped yelling, encouraging Luffy to live, to survive, to win. This had to have some effect in pulling him through. Again, the idea that not just dreams, but will, spirit, conviction, perhaps these things can be shared too. It's worth reiterating another time that over the vast oceans, Luffy will run into any number of men with kingly potential. Only one can emerge victorious by conquering heights greater than the other kings. What is clear is, on this journey, the shadow of death's door is the only obstacle standing between you and your dream. Your task is to simply overcome, to cheat death until you are personally ready to die. If only we all had the same will, the same conquering spirit, to decide when it is our time. For that is the essence of Hao Shoku. That is the nature of the Pirate King. We will have to wait and see. Don't forget to like the video, comment with your thoughts below, share this with your friends, and subscribe. Also click that notification bell. As always, there is more to come. Until next time, I'll see you all in Valhalla.
世界最高の戦争始めようぜ。
お前の相手は俺だ。
に